Well, the best part of SDCC is the announcements, and DC Animation did not disappoint with two huge announcements for 2024. Let's dive into what's coming at us next year, and why I think both of these are going to be two-parters. Now, before we dive into that, though, I wanted to give a shout-out to my favorite podcast, Who Would Win? Who Would Win is a geek and comedy podcast that debates battles between superheroes and villains from the worlds of comics, sci-fi, and fantasy. Ray and James have great takes on all these characters, and it truly is my favorite podcast, so make sure you check it out. The link's down below. Well, DC Animation had some pretty big announcements at SDCC. Typically, every year we get some news on some new upcoming animated movies, and it was starting to get a little nervous on my end of the woods because we hadn't heard anything about 2024. Now, we were teased the other day with a list of 2 movies that could be coming to Warner Brothers Animation in DC next year. But at the animation panel at San Diego Comic-Con, they were revealed, and honestly guys, both of them are pretty exciting. Now, there were 2 projects announced, which is kind of odd because they've been going with 3 or 4 projects a year, suggesting both of these are two-parters. Now, the first project they announced was Watchman. The Watchmen comic series is an absolute classic, and it's been brought to life a couple of times. There's been a motion comic, there's Zack Snyder's live-action version of the movie, and more recently there was the HBO Max series, all of which, quite honestly, were a lot of fun, and did a pretty good job with the material, despite some of the changes made from the books. Now, Watchmen was 12 issues, and there's no way they're going to cram 12 issues into one film. It would just be cut up too much. So I really do believe this will indeed be a two-parter, and more than likely another rated-R animated movie from DC Studios. Now, if Watchmen wasn't exciting enough, the second film is way off the charts, because they are going to bring to life Crisis on Infinite Earth. Crisis on Infinite Earth is probably the biggest event in DC history, and another one of those movies that's almost impossible to fit into one film. It was DC's comic reset event, combining multiple versions of DC's Earths into one core world and giving us variations of characters teaming up that's really never been seen before in comics. For me, it's DC's biggest event. Had all kinds of amazing things happen, along with a lot of unexpected deaths, and I do think that's exactly what we're going to get from this film when it finally drops. I suspect we'll see a lot of the same castings that we saw in Justice League War and previous DC animated movies for Crisis on Infinite Earth, but I have to wonder if we're going to get previous versions of those animated characters from past iterations of the DC animated universe, including the previous one that was ended with Apocalypse War, or the classic DCAU that was born in Batman the Animated Series and basically concluded at the end of Justice League Unlimited, even though there were a couple subsequent chapters. Now, there is a distinct possibility we get a little more from DC next year, but these are the 2 they've announced. Many people have teased the same list with a 3rd spot with Teen Titans, which is a current rumor, but we got no official announcement at SDCC, and I do believe if they were planning that, they would have probably let us know. In either case, both of these are very, very ambitious, big projects, big books, and classics on both ends of the spectrum. In any case, we're following this one close. This is big news and exactly the stuff we all wanted from SDCC.